Welcome everyone to Monday Match Analysis. I'm Gilles, just about 12 hours until the second best day in all of tennis. Ooh, you thought I was going somewhere else with that, didn't you? No, I think it's the second best day. I'll tell you what my favorite day in all of tennis is a little bit later in the show, right before I pick my Manic Monday matches, and I will pick every single Manic Monday match, every fourth round match on the men's side. And speaking of picks real quick, check this out, guys. Look at this. Racket bracket. You see maybe a good amount of green there. I am in 9th place out of over 6,000 entries. To be honest with you, I'm surprised because while I have picked a lot right, I am quite surprised that it's as high as 9th because I do feel like I got plenty wrong here, especially on the top. But supposedly, only 8 people have picked it better than me, which is pretty surprising. Check out that username, Mini Federer 11. That is me. I should probably change that to something, I don't know, like Gilles. I made that when I was like 11, very, very much so in the midst of my Federer fandom. I was going to be the next Roger Federer, believe it or not, when I was 11 years old. I was quite certain of that. Anyway, racket bracket, that's pretty cool. But later on in the show, I will go over, to me, the 2 biggest surprises in Wimbledon so far: Cilic upset and Alexander Zverev upset. And we will start off by, I will offer some quick thoughts on Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal. And I know I'm not known for quick thoughts. I'm probably more known for long thoughts. But I really don't have that much to say. And I'm going to tell you why. Let's take a look at the thumbnail. Can't wait to get going here. Ernests Gulbis. Are you kidding me? Ernests Gulbis is the thumbnail for Monday Match Analysis in the middle of Wimbledon. Did you predict that at the beginning of the week, that Ernests Gulbis would make the thumbnail? That is incredible. I love it. All right, let's talk about Federer. Let's talk about Nadal. I predicted them in the final. Am I standing by it? Do I still think that will be the case? I actually poked some fun on Twitter at Coffee Break Tennis. Because he was breaking down. He breaks down very closely every single Roger Federer match, and I'm sure that's one of the reasons he's so popular and so many people love him. But I can't do it, guys. I can't do it. I have seen too often players in the first couple rounds look terrible, save match points, look spotty, go on to win tournaments, make great runs in tournaments. I have seen too often players look great in the first couple rounds, top players who dominate their weaker opponents. And then they go on to be upset in the fourth round and they don't make the second week. I mean, so I used to do that. I used to pay very close attention to form. And I no longer really do that. When it comes to Federer and Nadal, my opinions have remained completely unchanged. Neither has dropped a set. They've both looked very, very good. They've both played, some decent threats. In Federer, in the case of Struff, a player who has some assets. And in the case of Nadal, a player in Damian Noir who has some assets. But the fact is, they have not, obviously, in the first 3 rounds, neither of them were likely to be challenged. And I know we've seen Nadal challenged. That would be a different story if he was challenged. But he hasn't dropped a set. So what is my opinion? Completely unchanged. Federer looks pretty quick out there. I'll say that. I think that in the warm-ups where he looked a step slow, I think he's looked his legs. It's looked like there's been some decent pop in his legs, some decent explosion. So that's good. And then for Nadal, I think the main thing has been the conditions, and the courts have been very favorable for Rafa Nadal and a few other players. I think this has played a pretty big factor. It's been so sunny. It's been so hot that I think the grass is a little bit less greasy. I think that it's more firm, which means the balls are bouncing higher. Nadal had a great insight this week. He told Chris Mackenzie and I believe Brad Gilbert in the ESPN studio. He talked about how when his knees aren't good, and Rafa has had so much issues with his patellar tendonitis, which I've suffered from too, actually. It's, bending your knees when you have that injury stinks. And the ball bounces so low. It requires to put so much more stress on your knees, so much more knee bend on such a regular basis, that is one of the reasons that Rafa hasn't really enjoyed Wimbledon in recent history. So that was a brilliant insight. I've always felt that the number one thing is the return with Nadal, and then I felt last year it was, bad luck. But that's something that he did shed light on, which was very interesting. I think this year, because it's been so hot, so dry, the courts have firmed up and the ball is bouncing a bit higher, which the main thing that people would probably point to is, oh, great, Rafa's forehand's going to kick up higher. But that's probably the angle that I would have taken. But Nadal, not brilliant insight. It's really just because, you don't need to be brilliant. He knows himself. But good insight there, coming straight from the source, that Nadal's knee bend has been a problem on the low bouncing grass. So that's quite interesting to me. That's it. That's all I got for you. I told you I didn't have much. I'm not going to dissect straight set, easy cakewalk matches for Federer and Nadal. Just not going to do it. All right. I want to talk about Alexander Zverev first, and then I'll talk quickly about Cilic. I felt, to be honest, like Zverev was in trouble. I had a hunch that he would lose to Taylor Fritz, actually. I think that Fritz is a guy a little bit similar to Zverev, where, he's got solid ground strokes, nothing, no major weapons, but a serve that's, I'd say, comparable in a lot of ways to Zverev's serve, a little bit worse, but comparable in the fact where it's probably not in the top tier, but the tier below that. So he gets good pop on the serve. He's really just a baseliner with good, clean hitting off the ground. He's not a great athlete, is Taylor Fritz. Defensively, he's not tremendous whatsoever, but forehand wing, backhand wing, doesn't matter. He hits solid groundies, so does Zverev. And I thought that basically Zverev, he's too passive on the grass, especially with his forehand, where almost most players on tour can turn their forehand into a weapon on this surface. Zverev just can't seem to do it. He does too much waiting. He's too passive. He's too far behind the baseline on this surface, where many players make that adjustment and play closer to the baseline because they're on grass, because they know they can't play defense. They can't wait around. It's so much easier for players to hit penetrating ground strokes off the ground on grass. So you need to play with urgency. You need to play aggressively. And Zverev kind of waits around. So I had faith in Taylor Fritz, who was a good ball striker, to basically, I thought it'd be a close match, but I thought that Fritz could maybe take initiative and serve well, win enough of the baseline rallies, win a close match, where he puts Zverev under a lot of pressure on a surface that I just don't like Zverev on. But that match was suspended by darkness. Taylor Fritz was up 2-1, and then in the next round I saw Ernests Gulbis. Gulbis came through qualifying, which means he had to win 4 matches. And then he finds himself in the third round. So he wins two matches in the main draw, one against a seeded player in Zoomer. So this is a guy on a 6-match win streak whose career really has taken a nosedive starting circa 2015. This is probably, and I could have checked this, I didn't, but I think it's fair to say, this is probably the longest win streak he's had in years. Maybe 3-4 years. So Gulbis, who we know is supremely talented, was a top 20 player for some time. A great backhand, one of the better backhands on tour, one of the better serves on tour when he's at his best. This is a guy who's hot, feeling good. 6-match win streak is very rare on tour. It really is. The only question was, he had played so many 5-setters. Was he going to break down physically? And I'm actually quite surprised that Gulbis won in 5. I thought that if Gulbis was going to win, he would have to win in 3 or 4. 6-love, 5th set. Ernests Gulbis took it over Sascha Zverev. I really do think on this surface, and this is, I think, what's missing from Zverev's game right now. There's just too much waiting around. Too much passivity, not enough initiative. And when he gets an opportunity on his forehand, he just doesn't always take advantage. He does not punish short balls on his forehand wing like you have to do. And ultimately, offense, he can do it. He can play offensive tennis. It's just very difficult for him. He has to string together a bunch of good shots in a row. And when it comes to his forehand, the only time I see his forehand winning him points, the only time I see him playing attacking tennis on his forehand is after a big serve where he's able to step into the court and hit a big forehand, or when after it's set up from his backhand. But when it comes to organically manufacturing offense straight from his forehand, I almost never see it from him. And on grass, the surface that lends itself to penetrating ground strokes more than any other surface, to never see that from him is a little bit, or to very rarely see that from him is a little bit concerning. Check this out. Let's go to the footage. Ernests Gulbis, angle backhand, a really nice angle, and he's going to put Zverev in actually a really tough position here. Now, I'd say on a hard court, on a clay court, the play would be to go to put some height on it, to go cross court, high, heavy topspin, buy yourself some time to recover to the middle. But on grass, that's probably not going to work. Just because even if you do recover to the middle, it's not going to. If you don't hit a heavy ball, it's really not going to do much for you. So the way Zverev handles this shot is he's really just going to rope it cross court. And what that's going to do is it's going to make it very difficult for Gulbis to hit his spot. So you see the ball on Gulbis's racket now, and you can tell how hard Zverev hit it because he's not even, he literally is just making his way towards recovering to the center of the court. And meanwhile, Gulbis is already striking the ball. If Gulbis times this correctly and hits his spot, which I have placed a blue circle where Gulbis was likely aiming for. If Gulbis was able to hit this spot, the point's over. Zverev hit it so hard, though, it's very difficult to time. And Gulbis misses his spot. So now you see, how often do we see this? A down-the-line backhand, when you miss a down-the-line backhand, or really any down-the-line shot for that matter, when you miss it that badly, when you drop it right in the middle of the court, you should be in big trouble. Gulbis, right now, should be put on the defensive by Zverev's forehand. He is out of position. It's right in kind of Zverev's wheelhouse. It played right into Zverev's hands. This is the problem here. Right now, Zverev has an opportunity on his forehand. Too oftentimes, those opportunities go wasted. And as you can see, Zverev drops it sort of short, not very heavy, and Gulbis is able to step into a shot right now. He's going to switch to continental grip, and he's going to threaten a drop shot. This is another thing. I already mentioned on grass, players normally make an adjustment and play a little bit further up to the baseline so that they can play more attacking tennis. Zverev doesn't seem to make that adjustment on grass, and Gulbis is one of his favorite way to attack and to really finish the points in this match was to use the drop shot, and it was so effective. On this occasion, Gulbis fakes the drop shot. So as you can see, Zverev really far behind the baseline, even though on the last shot he really should have taken, basically transitioned to the attack. And Gulbis is going to fake the drop shot, and oh, it happened again. Oh no, I missed one. Zverev fakes the drop shot. He hits it cross court to Zverev's forehand, and Zverev basically just drops that next forehand short, and Gulbis finishes down the line. Luckily, though, the key to that breakdown was not the fake drop shot by Gulbis, which was actually a really cool, crafty shot. The point is, right here, you got to do better than that. You just have to. Right there. So that's kind of my point about Zverev's forehand, and I think that's kind of held him back. It's sort of interesting with the next-gen players. You look at Chung. Look at Coric, look at Zverev. For some reason, the only guy who has that classic big forehand with great acceleration is Andrei Rublev, which is kind of interesting because I would have said 5 years ago, what's happening in the modern game? These forehands are getting huge. Big serves, big forehands. That's kind of what's happening. With especially the wave of Spanish players, Nadal, Ferrer, Verdasco, those guys. They all have such crazy acceleration on their forehands. Okay. I think that's all on that match. Let's talk about Cilic for a sec. Losing to Guido Pella in what I felt was the most surprising match in Wimbledon. I really thought that Cilic was a lock. He had been, as I said in the preview, a model of consistency in the last 2 years. But this kind of, brings you back to a time when Cilic certainly wasn't a model of consistency. My main takeaway from that match was this. Cilic only knows how to play one way. And and that is basically aggressive baseline tennis. He's sort of, I would say, the male version of Maria Sharapova, where Marin Cilic is going to be on top of the baseline and trying to attack on every single shot. There's just not a lot of defense in his game. Every shot has a pretty offensive intention for the most part. Not that he doesn't have trading in his game, and not that he's as offensive as Sharapova, because I don't really think you can be on the men's side, to be honest. The serving is too big, for one thing. So it'd be very difficult. But that's kind of how I see Cilic. The thing is, when you're struggling, when you're making errors, do you know how to reel that back? Do you have a plan B? And for Cilic, he's playing a guy in Pella who's not going to really hurt him. Pella isn't going to beat him. Cilic can lose, but Pella cannot win. And instead of reeling things back and making a lot of balls, Cilic stayed, he clearly didn't have it after the rain delay. And after the rain delay, he was up 2-0. He was down a break in the third, but he was probably going to win the match. And he just didn't have it the next morning. Now, I do think that it's very hard for a player to go home in control, up 2-0, because, and then play very early in the morning. I think it presents two challenges. The first challenge is when you're winning, you're basically not thinking. You shut your brain off. Your brain completely turns off. It's not like you go talk to your coach and your coach says, okay, Marin, this was working, this wasn't working. We're going to try this. We're going to try this. Let's do this instead of that. No, you're winning. There are no adjustments being made. On the other side of the court, Pella and his coaches are going to say, hey, this worked. This didn't work. Let's adjust this. Let's adjust this. So, there's a saying, a great MMA coach, the coach of Conor McGregor, John Kavanagh, he says, win or learn. If there's a rain delay in the middle of a match and one guy's losing and one guy's winning, it's going to benefit the guy who's losing because the guy who's losing is going to make some adjustments. If you're winning, you're probably not going to make any adjustments. That's just the reality of it. So in that sense, you sort of feel for Cilic. That kind of stinks. At the same time, Cilic needs, it would be nice if Cilic had the ability to say, let's take a step back here. Let's play with more margin. I'm not playing a guy. I'm not playing Roger Federer right now. I don't need to hit all the greatest shots in the world. I can play with more margin. I can play safer, and I'll be fine. If Cilic is playing a high-level opponent and he starts playing safe, he's going to lose. It's not his game. Not good enough defensively, doesn't move well enough, and he's going to lose. But against Pella, he can still win. So how do you continue to miss, if you look at the game where he broke, he missed a forehand, basically going for the line, at, I think it was 40-30 or something like that. The third to last point, he goes for the line, goes for a winner and misses it. And then I think it's deuce. And on deuce, Pella hits a very high defensive lob, but it lands deep. And Cilic goes for a perfect shot, probably would have been a winner, if not close to it, and hits the tape. Why are you going for such, perfect shot making when you basically are in a high-intensity situation. You haven't had your rhythm, and you're playing Guido Pella. So that's kind of my gripe with Cilic. At the end of the day, though, it happens. I mean, Cilic hasn't been upset early in a really long time. So I think when a player gets upset, I like to kind of point out something that I think that they could have done better on my show. That's what I like to do. But it's also very important to keep everything in relative terms. Sometimes they're going to get upset, and for Cilic, it hasn't happened in a really long time. I'd say for Roger Federer, though, this is major. In fact, I want to go back to a statement before I move on to Manic Monday. I want to go back to a statement I made about Roger Federer before the tournament. I said that there is a less than 50% chance that Roger Federer would win, and Las Vegas agreed with me. Federer was not the favorite to win Wimbledon. Las Vegas meaning the odds makers. The odds makers actually agreed with me on that. With the Cilic loss, that to me flips the switch. Now I'd say there's a greater chance, there's greater than 50% chance for Federer to win, because I think it's almost certain Roger Federer makes the final. And then in the final, whether that be Del Potro, Djokovic, Nadal, you have to give Federer over a 50% chance to beat all three of those guys in the form he is, and just knowing what we know about what Federer's done at Wimbledon. So I do think that that's flipped. Greater chance than 50% chance that Roger Federer will win Wimbledon. All right, let's minimize me to the corner of the screen now and talk about Manic Monday. I opened the show by saying it's my second favorite day in tennis. To me, there's nothing better than semifinal day. I love semifinal day. I think there's nothing better. You get two top-of-the-line matches. Usually the matches are as high quality as the final. It is, we're dealing with, normally the very best players in the world. And just to see how it unfolds, where we don't know what the final is going to be, two back-to-back world-class matches to decide who's going to be in the final. I don't know why, but to me that's better than Manic Monday, if I'm being honest. If I'm really thinking like what are the best days what's my favorite days in tennis, it'd have to be US Open and Wimbledon semifinal day, and I'd say those are like tied for first. But certainly Manic Monday with so much great tennis going on at once, it's definitely the best day, not second weekend in any major. So it is awesome, and I love it. Let's pick. I'm going to pick every single match and give you a little bit of background, give you my thoughts. Like I said, I am quite hot picking Wimbledon. Let's start with Roger Federer and Adrian Mannarino. So for Federer, he rolled through Lajovic, he rolled through Lucas Lacko, and Struff gave him, a match, but obviously rolled through Struff as well. Mannarino beat Medvedev in the last round in a match that I watched a lot of. That was actually that was going on simultaneously while Roger Federer was playing Struff, and it was a classic Adrian Mannarino match. This guy has made a living off of refusing to make an error. It only really works because he consistently hits with such great depth. He requires a lot of his opponents. That's what I'll say about Mannarino. He requires a player is able to create their own offense from the back of the court. And ultimately, it's a very frustrating guy to play. For Federer, someone who does not struggle creating their own offense from the back of the court whatsoever, you'd think it would be quite an easy matchup for Roger Federer, and he leads the head-to-head 5-0. They did play in Wimbledon 2011. Federer won in straights. That was actually one of the easiest Federer wins against Mannarino, because Mannarino has actually went the distance with Federer a few times. In fact, he's won 2 sets off of Roger Federer in their last 3 matches. But to be honest, I'm surprised to see that. I would think that Federer would have an easier time for Mannarino, because Mannarino really can't hurt Roger in any way. And I think against a guy like Medvedev, where, Medvedev, his forehand lags behind. I'd say Medvedev's biggest weakness is honestly using his footwork to put himself in really good position. And he can't come to net. And that was what stood out to me about that match. Medvedev would have to string together 4 great shots to win a point. That's what Mannarino does to you. You got to hit 4 great shots from the back of the court. Unless you can go to net. If you go to net, 1 good shot, second good shot, an approach shot, finish the point at the net. Medvedev had so much trouble finishing at the net because neither of his ground strokes are overly huge, and he wasn't doing a very good job, similar to Zverev, wasn't doing a very good job getting inside the court, but he just couldn't finish the points at the net and was making it so hard on him. So that was sort of the issue with Medvedev, who of course took out Borna Coric, who most thought would meet Roger Federer in this match instead of Adrian Mannarino. So my pick is Federer. Let's move along. Kevin Anderson, Gael Monfils. I'm really looking forward to this match. Monfils has actually proven me wrong a few times, or maybe just once, because I did not think he would beat Sam Querrey, who I really love on the grass. I'm picking Monfils in this one, and I'm pretty confident about it. Monfils beat Gasquet in the first round. Oh, he has proven me wrong a few times because I thought Gasquet would win that. Grazquet, as some call them. I actually got that from Daniel Scotti, who I interviewed before the tournament, if you missed that. Gasquet, I thought he'd lose to. Played Pablo Lorenzi in the second round, and then Sam Querrey in the third round. So Querrey and Gasquet, 2 really good grass court players, and Monfils has said in the past that every single grass court win is just a bonus. That he's literally said, I expect nothing. I expect nothing out of myself on grass. So it's so shocking to see Monfils win these matches. I feel like his movement is a little bit neutralized by the grass. He's one guy who I would point to the conditions, and I would say, Monfils must love how firm these grass courts are right now. But also, this is a guy who oftentimes plays a little bit too passive, but perhaps the grass gives him that little push because he knows he can't rely on his defense as much. Perhaps Monfils plays as offensively as we know he should on the grass. So but maybe that's what's happening. Against Sam Querrey, he was just high-flying. Gael Monfils, I've never seen him play better on the grass. And many forget he does possess that big serve. But ultimately, you look at a dude who's having the best grass court tournament of his life. The reason I'm picking him over Kevin Anderson, who beat Seppi in the second round, beat Kohlschreiber, a good grass court player, in the third round, is I think Monfils is going to go into this match. He looks at Kevin Anderson and is thinking, what can Kevin Anderson really do that much better than Sam Querrey? On grass, I don't think Kevin Anderson really is that much better than Sam Querrey, and they are such similar players that I feel like Monfils should come into that matchup very confident. Here's the second thing. Monfils leads the head-to-head 5-0. So combining the head-to-head with the form and the type of player who Monfils just beat, I like Monfils in this match. I like him a lot, and he's so much more creative from the back of the court, can make so much more happen than Kevin Anderson from the back of the court. Give me Monfils. Next up, Mackenzie McDonald. Very surprising. 23-year-old American, ranked 103 in the world, taking on Milos Raonic, who did not look good in his last match against Denis Novak. But I'm gonna throw that. I'm just gonna throw that aside. Another one of those matches that I believe was interrupted, if I'm not mistaken, by either, I think it was darkness. I don't think it was rain, but it might have been rain. I'm pretty sure that match was interrupted, and Denis Novak came out of the gates pretty well, as we just discussed. Tough. It can happen. Raonic beat Broody, Millman, and as I said, Denis Novak. McDonald, what a draw for McDonald to find himself in the fourth round, and certainly this is the most money he's ever made, so good for him. Beat Rob Berankis, beat Nicholas Jarry, and beat Guida Pella. So obviously dodged a bullet in not having to play Marin Cilic there, and he finds himself as a part of Manic Monday. But my pick, Milos Raonic, not much to that one. And those two have never played, by the way. This one's going to be fun. I expect a lot of attention on this. Lots of buzz about Stefanos Tsitsipas. I was shocked to learn, guys, that Tsitsipas's favorite surface is actually grass. Of course, most people assumed that it would be clay because it appears to be his best surface, the red clay. But his favorite surface is indeed grass. In this tournament, he beat Josh Donaldson. He beat Thomas Fabiano, who had an excellent run to the third round after beating Stan Wawrinka. John Isner didn't look great against Bemelmans in the second round, but got through that one, and then beat Radu Albert, who he's also spurned some upsets. I know he beat Pablo Carreno Busta in the first round. PCB has never won a grass court match, but still, Albert, what a run for him too. Big payday. I like, these lower ranked guys. You guys don't realize what a big deal, or maybe you do, but some people I know don't realize what financially, how big a deal it is for some of these guys. To make the third round in Wimbledon is huge. Anyway, Isner, Tsitsipas, they've played one time. Shanghai 2017, Isner won 7-6, 7-6. So, classic Isner, 2 tiebreak, best of 3 set match win. I have Isner in this one. I think it's tough for a young player to deal with a big server like John Isner at Wimbledon. It takes a lot of veteran savvy to navigate the small margins that John Isner kind of will induce on a match. And a quick comment on Tsitsipas, and I'm not going to go too deep into this. It could really be an entire video, but I am getting a little bit concerned that Tsitsipas is getting the Grigor Dimitrov treatment. When Dimitrov was young and coming up and everyone was like, hey, it's baby Federer, and you put this tremendous weight and expectation on a kid in Grigor Dimitrov, it probably wasn't quite warranted. While Dimitrov has turned into a really good top 10 player, struggling now, but a really good top 10 player, I'd say perhaps the Federer comparisons sort of held him back and put too much pressure on him. And Tsitsipas is a guy who, his talent doesn't pop out at me like an all-time great. I'm just going to be honest. It really, really doesn't. There's not like one weapon that I can really point to and say like, oh, this is going to change men's tennis. This is going to be a problem throughout men's tennis. Like the backhand is pretty. The forehand, the angles on the forehand and the placement on the forehand is incredible. Athletically, he's, pretty close to average. His serve, above average, but still, I mean, let's just be careful here with Stefanos Tsitsipas. I'm not really sure. We might be putting a little bit too much expectation on him so early. Novak Djokovic and the Silent K, Karen Khachanov. Another guy in Karen Khachanov. I did pick this matchup correctly. Khachanov, a lot of people were saying that he was the dark horse of the tournament, someone who's really aided by the grass courts. These two have never played. Karen Khachanov upset. This was actually not an upset. He beat David Ferrer in the first round. Then he beat Marcos Bagdatis in a match that I didn't think he looked very good in. And then Frances Tiafoe was up 2-0 on Karen Khachanov and got like the stomach bug. The commentators were, I believe, speculating, because I don't know if this has been really proven or not. I meant to see if Tiafoe said anything after the match, but the commentators suspected that maybe something bad was in Frances Tiafoe's drink, and that turned the match around. So Khachanov, who I did like going into Wimbledon, has not been that impressive to me. In the Bagdatis win, probably should have beat him by more. In the Tiafoe match, he really should have lost. Djokovic, on the other hand, not challenged until playing Edmund in the last round, and he got into almost like a war with the crowd there, and it resulted in some of the most inspired mental tennis I've seen Novak Djokovic play. He got that edge, that chip on his shoulder that I really think that Novak plays really well with. Novak looks really, really good to me, and I still expect to see him get to that semifinal against Rafael Nadal. So I'm picking Novak Djokovic in this one. Kei Nishikori and Mr. Thumbnail himself, Ernests Gulbis. These two have played once. 2014 Barcelona, so a clay court. Nishikori won. Really doesn't tell us anything. I'm actually surprised that these guys have only played once. Nishikori has had a pretty nice tournament. He's beaten the two kind of Aussie guys who are pretty good on grass, both of them, Bernard Tomic and Nick Kyrgios, who didn't really feel like playing the first set. Look, Nick Kyrgios, I told you that, and I did, in fairness, I did miss that match. It was one of the matches that I did not get to watch, but I told you it comes down to, like, first he needs to try, and if he tries, that's where his chances start. And it seems like in the first set, he wasn't trying very hard. Feels so weird to say that. Feels so weird. I also, by the way, sympathize with Kyrgios in the Marion Bartoli incident, where Bartoli came out and told him to grow up. To me, only tennis attacks on Kyrgios, never personal attacks. I would never say that Nick Kyrgios, needs to grow up. You need to frame it in the fact where, like, if he wants to win majors, he needs to put in more effort. Maybe he needs to mature. But him as a person doesn't need to do anything. Attacking his character, to me, doesn't make sense. Attack his tennis and his effort maybe on the court is a little bit different. But as a person, he's doing a hell of a lot better than all of us. Anyone. Me, whoever's watching this video, Marion Bartoli, I bet he's made, well, it's questionable. He'll probably pass Marion Bartoli in his career, in his accomplishments. Probably. So, I don't know. I understand Bartoli's point, but I kind of side with Kyrgios on that one. Where was I here? Oh, right. And then Gulbis beating Zoomer and beating Zverev, as I've mentioned. In this match, I'm picking Nishikori. He's so much more well-rounded from the baseline that he should be able to win the vast majority of baseline rallies with Ernests Gulbis. Backhand to backhand, Nishikori is right there. I think that he does quite well with the low bounce, especially on the backhand. Nishikori, he gets down so low on his backhand, so I do like that. On the forehand, he's got that very Western grip. So, on the forehand end, on the grass, I think that Nishikori probably doesn't love that low bounce. However, for forehand to forehand, Nishikori over Gulbis, 10 out of 10 times. So I think Gulbis is going to be overmatched in baseline rallies. And in terms of the serve, Gulbis serves so big, but he doesn't serve a very high percentage on the first serve. So I got Kei Nishikori getting through in that one. Juan Martín Del Potro, Gilles Simon. I'll tell you what, I'm really looking forward to this match because I would not want to play Gilles Simon now. And I am going to pick Del Potro, but I would caution Del Potro fans to be very comfortable going into this match. Delpo leads the head-to-head 4-3. That's a little bit of worrisome, but how about this? I'll comfort you guys a little bit. So many people, by the way, I feel like are Del Potro fans. 3 of 4 victories. 3 out of Del Potro's 4 victories over Gulbis are on grass, which is pretty crazy for a head-to-head, for that many matchups to be on grass. That's kind of interesting. So, Del Potro on grass, 3-0. Simon is, I have it written down, 2014 Wimbledon quarterfinalist. So I actually failed to mention that before. But, yeah. Simon has had success on grass. This is probably the prime example, Gilles Simon, of a guy who, for example, on clay, pretty much physically incapable of playing attacking tennis on clay. He doesn't have the strength. He doesn't have the ground strokes to do it. On hard, he sort of has the ground strokes to do that. On grass, many people would think, oh, Simon's a defensive player. He's going to suck on grass. Not so fast. The grass helps him be less defensive, and that's why the grass is so nice on Simon. But the key here is the bounce. Simon hits it so flat. In my opinion, nobody hits it flatter than Gilles Simon. I did ball boy for him, and I've watched him a lot live. And of all the players I've seen on tour, I don't think I can think of really anyone who hits it with less RPM on average than Gilles Simon. So the ball just doesn't bounce. Juan Martín Del Potro is going to hate that. So my prediction is this one goes 5 sets. And I think Del Potro's serve and his resolve and, his match toughness is going to get him through this match. Del Potro beat Feliciano Lopez in the second round very handedly, which was quite impressive by Del Potro, and then beat Benoit Paire in the third round. So Del Potro has had a tough draw, in my opinion. Simon beat Berrettini in the second round and Matthew Ebden in the third round, which was a very impressive win by Simon. Ebden was very upset with his level, though. Ebden, of course, beating... He had a really good run, and he's great on grass. So, impressive win by Simone. I would not want to play Simone right now. All right, we have one more. It is Rafa Nadal and Yuri Vesely. Nadal beat Sela, Kukushkin, and De Minaur. Vesely beat Meyer and Schwartzman and Fanini. So Vesely's taken out 2 ranked opponents. I think I forgot to look at these guys head-to-head. So let me just type it in real quick so I can see these guys head-to-head, because I just forgot to write it down, I believe. So this will only take a second. I am picking Nadal in this match. I think that the return is going to be the number one thing to watch. These two have played once. It was in 2015, Hamburg. Nadal won in straight sets, 6-4, 7-6. So I'll be closely watching the return, because for Nadal, the trouble in Wimbledon is, what's his ideal return position? He can't play far back like he likes to do on the clay, but when he's too far up, he needs to shorten his swing to a point where he gets uncomfortable. So how will he return in this match? If Nadal returns decently in this match, he will get through no problem. And that concludes all of the Manic Monday matches and our video. So hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. Look out for more reactionary videos throughout next week. That is when I will see you next time.